Okay, so welcome to the Rural FASD AGM. At this point, we currently meet quorum, and so at 10:43, we will begin our meeting. To begin with, we will accept our agenda is up on the screen. I will entertain a motion to accept this agenda. Moved by Karen, seconded by Cassie. All in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is our AGM minutes from last year. And I'll leave those up there for a few minutes for people just to look over. I will entertain a motion to accept these minutes from last year. Moved by Cassie, seconded by Mark. All in favor? Motion carries. Next up is our engagement review, of which I'm going to turn it over to Jane, who's going to give me some direction on when to scroll.
Well, just go to the first page, and this basically, the first page is the preamble from the accountant saying, well, to the board of directors, we've reviewed the accompanying financial statements by of Rural FASD Support Network of Eastern Ontario that comprise of the balance sheet as of December 31st, 2024, and the statements of operations and cash flows for the year that ended, the summary of significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. Now, talk about not not IOTA specific, but basically they're saying that they are basing all of this on the information that I gave them, that they have access to our books, and they're basing this all on that information. Management's responsibility for financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of these financial statements in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations and for such internal controls as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of financial statements that are free from material misstatements, whether due to fraud or error. Again, they're just doing this based on what we had. Any mistakes are my fault.
They take no responsibility. I'll take blame.
And on top of that, the practitioner's responsibility. Our responsibility is to express a conclusion on the accompanying financial statements based on our review. We conducted our review in accordance with Canadian generally accepted standards for engagement reviews, which require us to comply with relevant ethical requirements. A review of financial statements in accordance with the Canadian generally accepted standards for review engagements is a limited assurance engagement. The practitioner performs procedures primarily consisting of making inquiries of the management and others within the entity as appropriate, and applying analytical procedures, and evaluates the evidence obtained. The procedures performed in a review are substantially less in extent than and in very nature from those performed in an audit conducted in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards. Accordingly, we do not express an audit opinion on these financial forms. So basically, because I mean we're not for profit, that makes that with our grants and everything, we get more than $100,000 a year, but less than $400,000 a year. So in that, we only need to get an engagement review. It is not as in-depth as a full financial audit. If we had, over $400,000 annually in incoming monies, grants, revenues, then we would actually have to have a full-blown audit every year. So this is a step down from that. They still go over everything to make sure that, you know, we're not cooking the books, nobody's stealing, that kind of thing, but it's not as in-depth as a big audit because it's small amounts of money. Qualified conclusions. Oh, sorry, based on qualified conclusion. In common with many charitable organizations, the organization derives revenue from donations, fundraising, and the completeness of which is not susceptible to satisfactory review procedures. Accordingly, our review of these revenues was limited to the amounts recorded in the records of the organization, and we were not able to determine whether any adjustments might be necessary to donation revenue, excess of revenue over expenses, and other net assets. Qualified conclusion. Based on our review, except for the effect of the matter described in the basis of qualified conclusion paragraph, nothing has come to our attention that causes us to believe that the financial statements do not presently fairly in all material respects in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profits. So, you know, based on everything we've said, we've answered all the questions. They don't think we're cooking the books. They think everything looks good.
Yay.
Yay!
Reassuring.
That's a goal, right?
That is a goal.
That's goal. So, so our balance sheet, if we look at compared to 2023, 2024. When that cash on hand was 14,646, what that was at December 31st. So with our grant from Open Doors, we have to do a review with through Trillium, and then Trillium gives the money to Open Doors, and then Open Doors gives the money to us. In the last year, Open Doors has been going through some things in their staffing or their bookkeeping or whatever. We have a hard time getting this money from them. In a timely manner. In a timely manner. It's taking months. So we conducted the review with YOF at the end of October. The monies were given to were released to Open Doors in early November. We didn't receive it till January 9th. They received it, I think, November 6th, and we didn't receive it until January 9th. This time we were told that their person who pays the bills took the whole month of December off, so they couldn't give us the money. So that being said, we do not, you know, that money came in a few days after that 50,000 is, you know, came in a few days after this. So we do have cash flow. We can pay the staff, everything, you know, we can pay our bills and that. So.
YOF have any standards around how quickly the mentoring agency needs to release funds? Do we know?
It's supposed to be presently. We have not brought it forward to YOF at this point in time. We only have a year left, real deal, but we will not be doing this kind of partnership with Open Doors again. Well, I would recommend that we don't, unless they really have their things in order. Because, you know,
You just can't do business like that.
Exactly. I mean, we were never not able to pay our bills, but I only had 1 or 2 more payrolls
Right.
in those funds,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah, fair enough.
it's just challenging. So, then December cash on hand, and again, amounts receivable 47,000, that was the YOF, and HST, GST recoverable. So, our actual assets were 62,800, and that's in, that's where we are, most of it's cash now. Our office equipment is mainly our laptops that we use. Printer, and that gets appreciated. Liabilities, accounts payable and accrued liabilities are our standards, that we have every month. We're gonna be paying the accountants, and that was main one of that liability is almost 6,000, so. If we go down to statements of operation. Okay.
Yep.
So grant revenue in 2024, we received a total in all the grants, in all the hard work that, mainly, Rob and the board members went out there. $151,361, so a lot of that went to the YOF Trillium, but it's not all. We received funds from, the town of Smith Falls, a lot of community funds. We didn't, we received, like, our grant revenue was different because the year before we had Bell Let's Talk. This year we didn't get the Bell Let's Talk, but we got a lot more community support. And we're looking more at that. Donation revenue of 21,200. A lot of that had to was from the Polar Bear Plunge, the fund that came in 2024 for Polar Bear Plunge. General revenue, fundraising, and other income. So general revenue, part of that is mental health first aid, part of that is for the other programs that we use. Expenses accounting, 5,000. Administrative support, open doors, that's our standard, the 10% we can take off. And then just standard, childcare expenses, that's for your caregiver meetings for Michelle. I don't think, I don't know if there's any, it's all pretty standard. Travel was, some of that was, most of that was from, what trip did we take in the spring? For travel.
The spring one was the Seattle trip.
There, okay, so that was mainly what that's largest expense, I think that. So net assets of plus year net assets of $26,000. Okay. So cash flow statements, so the excess deficiency of revenue from other expenses. So this was, I'm trying to think what we talked about for that. This was something that was like kind of brought over from 2023, like it was that rollover from 2023 to 2024. Change in not operating, again, that minus 53,000, most of that was that delay in receiving funds from open doors. And yeah. So again, at the beginning of the year, last year we had 60,000. This year we had 14,000, but we had that $45,000 in from open doors that was owed to us. So we got that. And
Excuse you. How rude.
And then we just have a bit more of the, what the purpose of rural FASD is, what we do, where we serve. And accounting policies, just your standard operating that they use for Canada. Revenue received mainly operational grants, subsidies are recorded as revenue in the period which they are applicable. Grants and subsidies are approved but not received at the end of the accounting period are approved. So again, that's where we saw that minus and then plus. Overall, that's just them kind of going through how they do their numbers. And if you scroll down a little bit,
Financial instruments, we keep going.
yeah, okay, here we go. So again, and this is how they get to that 151,000 number again, and 125,000 over the year, same as last year, is the main one from Trillium. Government of Canada 10,000, that was the students' jobs, and Thomas Falls 16,000. That's how we got there.
Business phones. First time ever we got money from them. I think we should also acknowledge 151,000 of grant money in a year is phenomenal. Like, that's phenomenal work. And maybe we could name that in the minutes. Like, I think that's huge. And it's not easy to get grant money in this, so
Yeah.
kudos.
Yeah, well, that's, it's Trillium, thank goodness for the work we did at Trillium, and we have applied for other Trillium funding, we can't apply for the next one of this one. While we receive this fund, this grant, we can't even apply like, okay, so we're coming in our last year, can we apply now? No, it has to be finished before we can apply
Yeah.
for the next one.
But outside of Trillium, we've got close to 60,000 that we raised
Yeah,
from
it's
other
phenomenal.
sources.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's
exactly,
phenomenal.
exactly. And it's actually gone up a little bit for 2025, our Smith Falls grant is 25,000.
Beautiful.
So that's the max that they give, so that's the, yeah.
And I think those local grants, those community-based grants are more sustainable, and you're building the change in the community. So I mean, the provincial grants and federal grants are wonderful. The local grants actually speak to local support for the mandate of the work, right? Like, I think that's very powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah, it becomes a partnership. Exactly. Yeah, very good.
I keep talking away, don't I?
Did you want? Keep going.
So, yeah, so they determined that the, our economic competitive right now, of course, is the Trillium funding is our main, our main grant, our main funder. And that is through to, for one more year, we're in our last year of Trillium, so we do have to diversify and make some changes in the next year. I'm gonna be talking about that a little bit in the operating report. And the chairs contributed, the board themselves have been contributing as well.
Did you want me to speak just Karen's comment there?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, so just to go in addition with that. The board has been really, we've been able to accomplish a lot in the past 12 months in terms of establishing new partnerships, being able to work with, being able to collaborate with some other organizations and so on. There has been to date 57 grant applications that were done this year. So the trend that's fascinating to us though is right now we are currently 1 for 42 on corporate, provincial, and federal grants. We are 7 for 8 on local grants.
Oh.
So that is, yeah. So that I think is really speaking to kind of where our base is at. And at this point, we know that we have a guaranteed 63,000 in income for 2025 off of those grants at this point. So and that's on top of outside of Trillium. Sorry, that's actually outside of Trillium. So yeah. So you will, you may have noticed that, we were actually, at the end, we basically made, I guess, I don't know if you would call it profit, but we were $5,000 ahead. For this past year, we had stable numbers from 2023 versus 2024. Right now, we do anticipate though, because those grant applications are a much higher number than we saw last year. It looks like that we're starting to trend upward from a financial standpoint again. And we'll be talking a little bit more on the operations around the Red Shoe runs and the fundraising that we've got coming up. So I heard a potential motion regarding the engagement review. Is how do we want to word this motion? Do we want to say something besides just we move that we accept this report?
Any questions about the report?
I mean, you can add.
Give me just a second here.
Just said, if we've already got it in the minutes, I don't know about,
Do we have it? Oh, perfect. Okay.
but fact that, we're able to. As a comment. Yeah.
Can it be that the motion is that the report be accepted with special acknowledgement of the efforts of everyone for the success or something like that, like so that it acknowledges the efforts, not just the report?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that works. Just for our virtual audience, was there a question there? If you wanted to throw it in the chat, no? Okay. All right, so it looks like at this point, the motion is that it is moved that the report be accepted, acknowledging the phenomenal work on all of the hard work for grants and fundraising. Do I have a mover? Moved by Diane, seconded by Angela. All in favor? Motion carries. Moving on to operations report. Jane is back up again. Did you get your breath there?
Yeah. I had it.
Perfect. Okay, good. I tried to delay as long as I could.
So this is kind of a capture of 2024 from, office and what we're actually working on. So first of all, organizational updates, 2024 did see a lot of change in the staffing and in the organization. Samantha left us early in the year in February, and we brought Tanya on. Actually, Wednesday was her 1 year anniversary, Thursday, sorry, February 13th was her 1 year anniversary. As marketing administrative coordinator, focusing on increasing online community presence and while managing administrative tasks. And just on a personal note for Tanya, she won't mind me sharing with you that she also this week was another milestone, was her 5-year chick.
Oh, good for her.
Yes, yes, so I was very proud of her for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And of course, our lovely Shelley spearheaded a lot of this work and without the roots of which, we wouldn't really be here and I wouldn't be here. She retired kind of at the end of June as executive director, but she's not allowed to leave. She's staying on a volunteer basis. She is still supporting me and helping me along in doing the things I need to do.
Not so much anymore.
Did we not have, what, 3.5 hours on Monday?
No.
And Shelley brought me on in June, to work as operations manager. So it's not the scope of what Shelley was doing with ED, but I'm just making sure that day-to-day is being run. I'm herding the cats and keeping things.
That's the full-time job, actually. For cats.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then next is training and community engagement, and Judith, of course, has conducted 2 successful in-person mental health first aid sessions in March and May of last year. And then she actually then did our first virtual mental health first aid session in November, and it was really popular. So much so that we have another one here in February, and, we are getting, because it's virtual, we're getting engagement from outside of our area. We have, from Belleville, the Quincy Health, Committee or team, they've been really, and, they were in the first one, and they've actually put more people into this one. We've got some people from OPP that are gonna be joining. We have people from the Perth Family Health Team, who are gonna be joining virtually. So we're getting the word spread out there about the importance of mental health first aid. And because we are able to do it virtually and hybrid, we're even expanding our reach and for the people who are able to join. So that's really exciting. Judith engaged in system navigation and community collaborations with agencies like, of course, Kids Inclusive, for the Lanark Grenville Working Group, Family and Health Children's Services, Lanark County Mental Health. She spent, now here it says 227.15 hours, but that's actually, there was more because, I'm missing about 2 months, of that. So I would say probably about more like 250 hours. Addressing the 865 member issues and engaged with 283 contacts. Rural FASD was invited to key events, including the, Canadian CCSA Canadian Summit, which is the Canadian Council for Substance Abuse and Addictions, and the Brockville Bank there. That Tim Summons was really an eye opener and amazing because, of course, there's such a hand in hand between FASD and addictions. It was really good. They have put out the report from it, and there's going to be working papers and going forward for this again on these subjects. A lot of it they were focusing, of course, on the opioid crisis, but in being in the north and that there was a lot of talk, of course, about alcohol addictions and the effects of alcohol addictions and generational trauma with that. And these were some of the roundtable discussions we had as well. And kind of going back to what Rob was saying about our community engagement and our local grants, Rural FASD gave presentations to local organizations and municipal governments, spreading awareness about FASD, accessibility issues, those living with FASD, poverty, homelessness, employment issues for those living with FASD, and how Rural FASD supports our membership and raising awareness through Red Shoe events. Some of the groups we presented to were Knights of Columbus of both of Smith Falls, of Kemptville, North Grenville.
Yep.
The Lanark County Council, Leeds and Grenville County Council, Smith Falls Council, Montague Council, Smith Falls Catholic Women's League, and Edwardsburg Cardinal Council. And from those, a lot of these presentations are what spearheaded those grassroots. You apply the grant, but when they actually see you, and it's only a 10-minute presentation, but a lot of those 10-minute presentations, there was questions afterwards, there's impact, and one of the things that we really got out of them is, they didn't know what they didn't even know what they didn't know. They didn't even know what scope this was, or they've heard of it, but they didn't even know how it affected their own populations and the people they were supporting. So from the Lanark County Council, we were actually, from our presentation there, the mayor of Mississippi Mills asked us to present at Mississippi Mills. And so the, all the fingers are going out there. And we were really welcomed there in January. actually, it was a really lovely evening. Events and awareness initiatives. So in 2024 May, we hosted our first Red Shoes Run Family Day on May 11th. And we had 313 attendees and we raised about $1,500. We had the Art in the Park, which we replaced the June caregiver meeting, and we provide art-based social events for families. We participated in the Beckwith Heritage Day, September 8th, as part of FASD Awareness Day, and engaged with over 250 attendees, raising about $500. And from the success of the May Red Shoes Run event, the planned expansion for the Red Shoes Run events in 2025, and these are now all approved and well on the way for planning. And so the first one is going to be a similar family day, fun day. It's on a Monday, so we have the schools involved with coming. And it's going to be a 1K fun run. And we actually received a jump start from Canadian Tire grant for this. And so it's partly for this and also partly pays for our caregivers as well and our support. So that was a really good, a lot of those jumpstart grants, a lot of them go to the big towns, the big cities. Sean over here, this is the first one he's had come to him.
So we're part of the Ottawa region, and it's the first time they've done a grant outside of Ottawa. So, and in fact, the committee had identified a couple last year. The committee had identified last year that they really were not reaching the Ottawa Valley. So they were, we actually got to present directly to Toronto and their committee there and talk a little bit about rural FASD there with them. And then in turn, they approved. Yeah, this is the first time that they've ever approved an application from that Cornwall, Kemptville, Prescott, Smith Falls, Carleton Place corridor. They've never done that before.
And then Johnstown, which is going to be a sanctioned 5K run, timed event. So that's going to be used as a fundraiser. Even more so than the Family Fun Day. The Family Fun Day is going to be more about awareness and getting everybody involved. 5K, we want to turn this more into fundraisers. Again, with the ending of the Trillium, we need to look at more fundraising events, and larger fundraising events. And for what we are, a gala that there's drinks and dinner, it's kind of not really what we are. So we want to try to get things that are more community based, but we also want to be able to get something that will raise, a good amount of funds. And as these things grow, they can get quite large and, again, better for our organization. And the third one and the most ambitious event is a triathlon in Kemptville. So back in the summer, Rob, I was in maybe 2-3 weeks. I think I was maybe a month. So we went, I think I was here too. Trotted over to Kemptville and met with the mayor, and we talked about the Red Shoes Run, and we talked about events and that kind of thing. And the mayor said, "What do you think about a triathlon?" Rob said, "Oh, that's a great idea." And I'm like, "I didn't think about a triathlon." I know you do though. I know there's like 3 things, and I know people who are really fit do these things. Anyway, so we're doing a triathlon. Triathlon Ontario's on board. The North Grenville's on board. Everybody's very excited about this. I am afraid. I'm very afraid, but we're gonna do this.
Don't be afraid.
We can do this.
But
Yes,
you said the Triathlon Ontario is quite involved, right?
they are.
Giving us lots of
And here's
guidance
the thing that's really key about this insofar as fundraising. Because for me, it's all about the money. I'm sorry. But so this is going to be a sanctioned event for, the younger, so, the 12 to 14,
16,
12 to 16?
Yeah.
Or I thought, well, the two groups are like,
12 to 14, yeah, the 12 to 14
and then
Or 12
15,
to-
16, 17.
Yeah.
And what these are, these are kids who are participating, they are Olympic hopefuls. So there's no events in Eastern Ontario, this is why Triathlon Ontario is really big on this. So we're gonna have kids probably coming from Toronto and, from all over Ontario, because they get points from this that helps them get to the Olympics. So this can be a big draw, and again, going forward in years to come, as we expand, this can be a very good, not only for the money part, but also for awareness.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be the Red Shoes run, Red Shoes Triathlon for FASD. And we are going to be always tying our FASD to these events. And it's I think, a great opportunity for these young athletes to learn about, other kids who aren't as privileged as them and who've had, more challenging childhoods and lives. So,
So Jason, it is a qualifier,
Mhm.
I'll call it that. But anybody 18 and older adults that want to participate.
Yeah.
we're gonna also have a fun one.
Okay.
So
So
there's
there's-
also the recreation,
Yeah,
so
so,
the.
so as far as us spreading the word.
Mhm,
yes.
Okay.
mhm,
Thank
yeah.
you.
yeah,
So yeah, there's actually two triathlons. So there's what they call the sanctioned one. Which is where the Canadian Olympic hopefuls would be participating. One thing to keep in mind there, when you're talking about that type of an athlete, it's not a single individual though, right? Every single one of them have a team around them. Like their team is, you're talking 10 to 12 people with each one of these athletes. So we're anticipating that we're literally going to have audience with over 1,000 of these athletic teams, people who have never heard about FASD in any capacity whatsoever before. So this is, to be able to reach that type of an audience is pretty cool. Certainly the possibilities.
Is Coach
Cogeco and Kempville, that I don't know.
we have a partner.
I know it's in
Coach
Brockville. Yeah, I know it's in
To
Brockville and I know
highlight
it's in Smith Falls, but I don't know about Kempville. Yeah.
I just know we have.
But then the second one, the second half of it is what they call recreational triathlon. So this is where anybody from the community that wants to participate in one can do so. We've already made some connections actually with the Black Watch out of Pembroke. A lot of our military personnel tend to do this type of thing, so the word's already spreading through there. The Kempville community actually has they actually have a recreational triathlon club, which is why the mayor was bringing it up in the first place. So this event is going to get us in front of people that we've never been in front of before.
Well, and I would say that the age group for the trial triathlon, like the 14 or the 12 to 17.
Yeah.
Can also then be billed as a prevention exercise, right? Because you're
Yeah.
talking about the age group where we're trying to get the word across around prenatal exposure to drugs and alcohol, so.
Yeah.
It could be a double whammy, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
no problem, that was good. Yeah, so, we are going to be tapping the schools, especially in like the high schools of students, the ones that need their volunteer hours for volunteers, because we are going to be needing a huge amount of volunteers for that. There's gonna be some community-based volunteers in that, but if anybody here knows anybody who likes to volunteer, we are gonna be spreading those news out there. Insofar as the membership, we would like them to, because we're gonna need people on road now, but we want the membership in the core area to teach about FASD and the actual reason why this is there to, the reason why we're putting this on everybody. So we want our core membership right in, for education.
Budget code is available.
I thought so.
Okay,
Hey,
Just a thought.
yeah,
no, it's good thought, Chuck.
Yep.
Other things, so from the great impression of that FASD, rural FASD, gave to, at the last CAN FASD conference, we were actually invited to be on the organizing committee for this, for the upcoming CAN FASD conference. So,
Which is in October.
October, yes, October 22nd through 25th. And
Toronto, yes.
in Toronto, and they've actually now opened up abstracts. They want abstracts from people with direct voice, direct experience as well. So they really have switched the conference to two streams. One is the academic, is the CanFASD kind of research stream, but they've recognized and included that all that stuff is for somebody, and maybe they should actually hear from us, caregivers, people living with FASD, direct voice. So there is abstract out there. I want to put this out a little bit more to the whole team and that, but an idea of us basically coming together as a group and presenting together, as opposed to individual abstracts. But this is
Do you want to
something.
present?
Pardon?
What's the intent of presenting? Like, what do you want to present?
Yes, our logic model. The logic model that we've been working on over our time and that, yeah. And so because there's different components to the logic model and how it affects different people, if somebody, the pillars and to understand. Yeah, so I'm working on it, but I want to put it out I'm going to be putting it out to everybody as well. We have till March 31st to get this together, so I am working on that, and, but I want to put that out there.
Is there an opportunity on our, say, our Facebook page to present a refresher on what that logic model is?
Yeah, definitely, I'm gonna be, yes.
Yeah, plus.
I'm
fun using.
actually, it needed a bit of an update anyway, so I'm working, Rob and I are working on the update, and then I'm gonna put it out there to everybody, like the whole, the outline of what we want to, of what we want the abstract to be.
Mhm.
And then I'm gonna want everybody's feedback.
Well,
on that,
yeah.
but
I would be interested in responding, but I do need that refresh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely. And we were also invited to submit an abstract for the Anishtabak G7 FASD conference up at the Sault Ste. Marie. And so Shannon and I, actually Shannon downstairs, she basically, on the program that she's doing downstairs with our youth, she condensed that and worked that into a workshop form. We submitted that for an abstract. So, and they accepted it and they welcomed her. So she's going to be at the end of this month heading up there and to present her anchor workshop on the anchor program. They were really interested on her thoughts and her work on that. So. Programs and support initiatives, of course, we continue with our monthly caregiver meetings. I think they're really, there's the key group, but it's really important for all of us. In September, we brought in Shannon, and she's starting to work her anchor program with the young adults. And Cassie, how are you finding it so far? She's loving it. Annie, yeah? So far, yeah. So that's been really positive, and we want to expand that with Shannon going forward as well. Ongoing youth initiatives includes was Annie contributed to social media content and event planning last spring. Cassie and Mark speaking on accessibility issues at the Lander County Council, And Cassie also spoke at the Mississippi Mills Council and made a huge impact there. And Skylar was presented this summer at Camp Cherub. So
And
our,
Smith Falls,
pardon?
and Smith Falls Town.
Oh, yes, and it's in Smith Falls Town Council. So our youth are really going out there and making an impact as well. And so we want that to continue. So anybody who's welcome or open to it, we want to continue, we want to support it.
What about the youth working with the youth to put a proposal together for the conference?
Yes. Yeah, yes,
No, together,
Yeah.
together we'll do it.
Yeah.
Let's amplify the youth voice.
yeah, I mean, and part of that logic model workshop could be that, or we could do something separate as well.
And just, you've got the logic model there, so the 4 pillars, can you scroll over to the 4 pillars? Yeah.
Education and awareness.
Yep.
Skill building, support and advocacy, fellowship and community building. Sounds like we're covering it.
So maybe you could take one of those pillars maybe. And speak to how. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the academics should be hearing from our youth.
Definitely.
Voice, how it's happening, how it affects them in school, how when they hit 18, trying to get community services, trying to navigate. Like,
Mhm.
Ontario is failing.
Oh, yes, yes,
So
yeah,
maybe hear it first once, maybe it might resonate better than
yeah, and this.
academics talking for us.
Yeah, exactly, and this is why on this one, it's more like that's for this FASD conference. Half of the presentations, they want to be that direct voice, that's why we were invited onto this planning committee, because they want. They realized that half of the piece was missing on this conference previously, or on these. So yes, and you're right, this is something they do want, and the academics are starting to listen. So, from this planning station. Yeah, so we can table that, but we'll be working on this more for it. Rural FASD continues to assist caregivers supporting with navigating, accessing services like ODSP, daycare, adult diagnosis and addiction support. Increased community engagement through situation table participation, including involvement in the 4 filter discussions and community response to bullying related death and hurt. We've been working on that from the operations side as well. Funding and grants. So we successfully secured our third YOF funding with positive feedback from the program administrator. We were awarded the $5,000 Jumpstart grant to support the Red Shoes Runs events and the Anchor program. We received approval for Lanark County Community Grant in the amount of $8,000. We were awarded the Brockville Community Foundation grant in the amount of $1,250. Received $1,000 from the Almont Civitan Hall, and received $10,000 through Canada Revenue Agency for the Canada Summer Jobs. That allowed for the creation of the FASD app. We've got that finished.
We, just a quick update, I don't know why, but the Almont Civitan Hall is now 3,500, not 1,000. There's a check that came yesterday.
That's right.
So,
2025, I mean,
there you go. Okay. Any?
Done.
We didn't. I'm looking at the date of the check. I'm looking at the date of the check. It's 2 days after Cassie's presentation at the Mississippi Mills Council. I'm thinking.
Since
So,
ago, so they've
yeah.
been contributing, like they did $1,000 in 2023 as well.
yeah,
But I suspect.
yeah.
I think that's what it is.
Made an impact, really did.
Can I just make a comment if you're done? Are you done?
I have,
No.
I have one more section and then we're done.
Okay.
So future plans and strategic goals. Increasing FASD awareness and funding abilities through expanded registered learning events, is kind of achieve that. Expanded training revenue through offering the virtual and hybrid mental health first aid courses. Continued caregiver support meetings, enhancing engagement and education. Strengthening advocacy efforts through municipal and provincial collaborations. Enhanced marketing efforts through social media, community outreach, and strategic partnerships. So in conclusion, rural FASD has experienced significant growth in 2024, expanding its events, training sessions, and advocacy efforts while securing critical funding and continued support. With an ambitious 2025 roadmap, we aim to build on this success and feature our mission of supporting individuals living with FASD and their caregivers. We are also in the last year of the YOF grant with restrictions in applying for continued grants during funding period. We will be seeing some changes in 2026 because of that.
Yeah.
So. Now, I'm done.
So I just have two comments that I'd like to put into minutes. One is, just how much we appreciate, the mental health first aid training. And all the feedback I've been given is Judith's a phenomenal teacher with that respect to that. So I do want to give her kudos for that. Because it was definitely identified as a need in Leonard County. From like a work life that I had discovered about it. So I'm just happy that we're able to provide it in both forms. And then the second one is, I want to acknowledge Jane. It has been, like, she's had a lot of digesting and learning and you know, the last 6 months has been like intense. In her developing into the roles and that and on the job, and I think from being kind of on the sidelines now, I think I don't get all the questions that I got even back in like August and September. Like she's taking it and running with it and doing a phenomenal job. So I just thanks.
Any further questions? I would entertain a motion to accept the operations report. Moved by Shelley, seconded by Cassie, all in favor. Pass. Okay, coming to near the end of our meeting for our AGM. So at this point, we are going to enter into our nomination election of directors. Before we do so, there are 4 individuals who are stepping off of our board for this year. And so I wanted to just take a couple minutes to acknowledge them and the contributions that they've made. The first individual that stepped off of our board was earlier this year, and we just finally have the opportunity to acknowledge that, and that is Mark DeRose. When I think about where we were when you first came on, we were absolutely in need of energy. We were absolutely in need of some drive and some passion. And when we look at, I know for sure, when we look at the growth expansion that we have been through over these 5 years, you have been a huge part of that. And I look now at the work that you and Shelby and Angela and Diane have done, the things that we're doing in Leeds Grenville now, the things that we're doing in Edward Burns Cardinal is a direct testimony to the work that all of you have done and yourself in particular, Mark. So we thank you for that. We are also we are also extremely appreciative of the fact that when we all looked at each other and said who was going to be secretary and no one spoke up, we really appreciate you taking that on. So the second member that we also wanted to acknowledge, Michelle Kilner, has came to the end of her 3-year term, and she has made the decision at this point not to renew that. Again, when we were having our board meeting last week, we were reminded of the fact that Michelle was our very first treasurer and was the one in our first year when we literally had, I know, Michelle's great. Sorry. I have a friend waving to me. That's why I was waving back. Oh, is that right? Oh, wow. Are we clapping again? Okay, maybe not. All right. Yeah, so when we were thinking about it, Michelle was our very first treasurer. That year, our entire annual income was $2,000. And so we were, and the only reason Michelle became treasurer was because her husband David signed her up for it. So, because he said he understood how to do Excel spreadsheets, and that's literally how we did our books for the first 2 years. And Michelle did a wonderful job of that. She actually continues to be our Walmart advocate, and our Walmart grants have been as a direct result of her advocacy as well. And so we want to acknowledge Michelle. The third individual we want to acknowledge is Steve Bridson. Steve was actually replaced Michelle as our treasurer, and he has actually been serving in that role for the last 4 years now. And when we think about all the changes and the transition that we went from literally Excel spreadsheets being done on a home computer to all of the financial management and the systems and everything we have in place, that was Steve. Steve was the one who kind of really helped us navigate through all of that. He met with all those people, met with the bankers, met with H&R Block, met with to some extent and all of those kinds of things. So very much acknowledge the contribution that Steve has made, as well as we know also the town of Smith Falls and some of the partnerships and the grants from the Knights of Columbus, the Catholic Women's League. That is also the Britsons, and that has been through their advocacy, and so we want to acknowledge that. And then the final director we want to acknowledge is Malcolm McIntosh. Malcolm, I was trying to think, I think Malcolm may have been to one caregiver group in our entire history. I'm pretty sure he's been at 1 or 2, but he has been one that has been behind the scenes through all of this. Malcolm is the reason that we have this beautiful facility and the wonderful relationship that we have here at the church and the access that we have here. He was the one that made all of that happen. At the same time, he is also with the Bridsons. People in Smith Falls have known the journey that Malcolm and Linda have been on for the last 40 years here in Smith Falls. And anytime I have met someone who, when I start talking about FASD and they'll say, oh, I know someone, almost invariably it was Malcolm and Linda that they knew. And so they have, the groundwork they have laid here has been humongous. The other aspect that I don't want to dismiss is when we had our original board of directors, Malcolm was one of the very first to come on. He was the only individual at that point that had any nonprofit governance understanding and any experience. And so when we were first kind of laying out our policies, procedures, and working through that, it was Malcolm. that was really the one that gave us a lot of direction in terms of considerations and things to think about and all of that. So we do want to acknowledge all four of them and thank them for their service. So, yes. So at this point, we do have currently 5 directors on our board. Those 5 directors consist of myself, Rhonda, Diane, Cassie, and Angela. And as a result, that actually means that we have 5 spots potentially open right now, but we also recognize it's not necessary for all 5 spots to be filled at this time. So, yes,
Bylaws tell us that we have to have a minimum of 3 directors. So
Yes.
that requirements.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do, yeah. So from the new requirements from an ANCA standpoint, we are required to have a minimum of 3. So,
It's our bylaws.
or our bylaws, sorry, our bylaws from a minimum of 3, which obviously we are still clearly meeting that obligation. So at this time, however, I will accept any nominations for any of the 5 seats. Is there anyone who would like to nominate themselves? I have Shelby DeRose, who is nominated. Do I have anyone else who would like to be nominated? And so I close nominations at this time. And the motion is, do we elect Shelby DeRose as a director on the board? All in favor? Approved.
Yay.
Congratulations, Shelby.
Just like to note, that means that we have 3 individuals on our board with living experience. Thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
For bringing your voice to the table.
Absolutely. So, moving on to the second to last item on the agenda then, as part of our AGM, we also have to once again appoint our engagement review auditor, rather than so that when we come to that point in the year, we have that in place. Jane, did you want to speak to what it was like working with Mr. Winter?
Well, because all the groundwork was laid last year, it was extremely easy. We were able to, well, we're February 15th, and we have our engagement review done. Because they had all the groundwork done, they were really easy to work with. I worked with CPA Layla. And she, very, very simple. So I highly recommend 10 out of 10. Very professional and very easy to work with. And because the groundwork was laid, it was quick and easy. They know us now, they know our notes, and it carries forward. So
And they have the ability to do an audit if we meet that threshold, right?
yes, Bob is able, he's CA, so they are, if we do.
When we do.
When we get up to above $400,000 in annual revenue, then we will have to go from an engagement review to an audit. And just having that background will assist that as well.
The other note that should be made as well, part of why we went with Mr. Winter is because Trillium requires us, they have a list of approved auditors that they have as well, and Mr. Winter is on that list. So that is another consideration. So at this point, I would entertain a motion for Bob Winter, CPA Professional Corporation, to be appointed as our auditor, moved by Cassie, seconded by Shelley. All in favor? Motion carries. Wonderful. And so that brings us to our last item. I would entertain a motion for adjournment. Moved by Cassie, seconded by Angela, all in favor. Carries. And we are 11:47 a.m. and that concludes our AGM. We thank everyone for joining us here today. And we will now stop the recording.
Thanks.
Oh,
Nice to see you virtually.